You're watching KTN News. Thank you very much for joining us tonight for the conversation. All eyes are on the education sector. But so far, the Kenya Meteorological Department Director, David Gekungu, has warned that the rains would continue in various parts of the country for the next 7 days. He also said that there's a risk of landslides on steep slopes. So if you're watching this morning in either of these areas, do talk to us on what exactly is on the ground tonight. All right? Allow me to also appreciate the guests in studio this very moment, because a lot is happening in the education sector. Remember, it's just a few days shy to the opening dates for the second term, and it didn't look so good when there's a bit of confusion seen today, especially children in uniform, either being given fare back home, all right? Children stuck in school because they do not know what exactly to do at this point in time. But I want to hear the opening remarks of Honorable Nabina. We're a member of Parliament Lugari, because Kakamega in itself does not look so good in as far as the floods are concerned. What is the situation in as far as the schools are concerned? Have you walked? Have you talked to the people on the ground? What is the situation this far? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Doris. And viewers, I want to start by saying that I send my condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones in Garissa, in Wajir, in Tana River, in Maimahiu, and the constituents of one of my closest friends in Mranga, Madioya, where we've lost people. I want to also say that as a country, this is an indictment on ourselves as leaders. We can't be that every other year there is some little more rain. We look so unprepared. The whole of last week, Nairobi was impossible, you know. Mathare is a nightmare, and many other parts of Nairobi are a nightmare. The situation in Kakamega, though not looking so good, it isn't as bad as these other areas. But we are warning our people in the lowlands along River Nzoia. For example, in my place, in Lugari constituency, areas around Kabrengu all the way to Chepsai, the areas downstream River Nzoia in Mahukune area, areas around Makutano. I'm telling them to be alert, and I've spoken to the chiefs to be very, very alert, and let our people monitor the river as much as possible. What is upsetting about the whole of this thing is the confusion of the opening date.
And in fact, just to echo that, you sit in the committee of education in the National Assembly.
I must apologize on my own behalf and on behalf of our committee. That is not how you can run education. Not at all. Not you can't postpone opening at 1:20 in the morning. Exactly 1:20. My phone is on a program. When I get a news flash,
all right,
it just prompts me. The prompt came at 1:20, and I feel so sorry. This is what happens when a school is opening. For many schools, extra county, national schools, they have children from all over the country. In some places, children started traveling on Friday, on Saturday. A child who goes to Kakamega High School from Mombasa, he can only start traveling on Saturday. A child who goes to Kakamega High School from Northeastern, when did he start traveling to be in the school? Please remember, when we say schools are opening on Monday, some schools stagger. Some start on a Sunday, some Tuesday. I mean, so that they fit in the program. The rains have been around for the last 1 month, for God's sake.
Since mid-March.
And the meteorological department has been continuously warning this is the situation.
All right.
It is such unacceptable, the high level of impunity, right word to use, for government to treat parents and their children in that manner. Because, look at it this way.
Yes.
The children have arrived in school. The teachers are planning to be in school. They read in the morning. The children are already in school. The boarding master is there, maybe. The principal, the teachers are planning to be in school today morning. They wake up and they are being told the school is still on recess. And this principal here has some 300, 200, 400 students who have arrived. What does he do?
All right, let me come back to that question. What does he do? We have some updates on, tickets that were booked, for those who are supposedly going to use the trains extended till May 10th. So there's a few developments that we'll also be talking about. But let me hear from Akelo Misori, who's the ASG Kupet. So far, we've seen teachers on the streets. And of course, that is another concern for the JSS, in turns. So you remember when we started the CBC, there's already concerns on how we will actually implement the CBC. It had its own share of concern, but let's just hear your opening remarks this far. Are we looking at issues arising, including what Lugari Member of Parliament has shared here this evening, affecting the school calendar and significantly impacting it this far? Welcome to the broadcast, Akelo.
Thank you so much, and also join my Member of Parliament to grieve with the relatives who have lost their loved ones in the various parts of the country, including parts of Homa Bay and Migori, and the most recent one, Maimayu,
right,
Tana River, and the Garissa regions. I feel so much offended when we have to discuss this matter of JSS teachers. Because remember, somebody else went to court on a matter of public interest and declared the engagement with the Teacher Service Commission illegal. And even as they are on the streets, remember this is the cohort of teachers who are engaged to first of all, manage transition from primary to junior secondary school. In fact, basically, the people who are in charge of that category of learners are junior secondary school teachers who are engaged as interns. They're the ones who have been declared unconstitutional and their engagement illegal. And the circular that engaged them was also declared a nullity. So look at it from that perspective, that it all goes to affect education.
All right.
And it has impacted very negatively at that level where we are expecting transition to be smooth and in readiness for senior school. That is one. Now come to the confusion. Another show of lack of coordination in government. Does it mean that the government was asleep up to 1:20 a.m. in the morning? In fact, thanks to the Member of Parliament, because he has got various gadgets which can prompt him. What of those who are not prompted? And he has given us a chronology that some schools receive their students start movement 2 days earlier to opening of schools. The schools have opened.
All right.
They have opened, and that is the calendar. I have seen just in your bulletin that Kapsabet boys said they didn't have issues. The teachers who had already reported in school and the learners who came were being received.
You know, I'm
because
sorry
that's
to interject.
another school.
Yes, I'm sorry to interject.
So
because
these are
yes,
some disturbing notes that we need not to get from a civilized society, and more so our stage of development.
Okay. Yeah. There is news, however, that the Cabinet Secretary has made it clear that for those who already arrived at their schools, respective schools, they could hang in there. Is that any helpful communication to that point in time?
Reaction. Knee-jerk reaction, because what he is now reacting to is because he has been informed that some schools had their students arrive. But already there is no reason to keep them in school. Because are you going to teach them?
All right.
While others are not being taught elsewhere?
Then what can be done? What can be done this far?
Let me just weigh in on what the Secretary General is saying. It doesn't make any logical sense for the minister saying that the children remain there. The question is, if the teacher was supposed to be in school, he has been told to stay home and he stays home, who will superintend these children? Tell me. Will you hold a teacher responsible for not turning up to take care of these children? And you have given a circular to say, hey, listen, the school is not opening. That's number one. Number two, what do those students do? Because they can't be taught in the absence of the others. For 7 days, what will they be doing in that school? On that, this country, we must get serious. We cannot have a Ministry of Education which is so incompetent. Sorry to say. You can see what Missouri is saying. JSS, they don't even seem to have a solution. You know, even if the school was opening today, the JSS teachers are on the street. Number one. Number two, the school did get their capitation, all of it. Even if they are opening, there is no telling us, the school, have they now got their capitation? Number three, those schools, even if these kids were to go back, grade 7, grade 8, I've said consistently, they are not being taught properly. They don't have STEM teachers, they don't have math teachers, they don't have adequate teachers for English and Kiswahili. Right. We cannot have a ministry which is so incompetent.
All right.
We are just about half a year to grade 9. No single classroom has been put up for grade 9.
Now, besides the teachers, you know, speaking about joining the doctors almost every Tuesday, let me just put you on the spot a bit here. SG Kupats, the floods and the meteorological department gave the warning way earlier. It's interesting then, this time, that the people who are watching this morning are yet to hear if you raised your voices in as far as the situations in schools are concerned. Remember last year, just last year, the El Nino hit the country. We had schools in very bad condition, infrastructure, destroyed. Even to start with, was that repairing of infrastructure done last year into this year, another season of rains coming in? Are we not concluding something before another strikes? What is happening on the ground as a union, not just for the teachers?
It is unfortunate.
Yes.
You single me out to be put on the spot on the issues which do not belong to me.
All right.
The issues which belong to me are basically terms and conditions of service for teachers.
That's it?
The teachers do not and are not going to be held responsible when classrooms are not built. We are not. Like now we are asking that the grade 7, grade 8 and grade 9 are supposed to be taught normally like any other.
Is that infrastructure you use as teachers?
This infrastructure
yes.
is supposed to be provided by somebody else. With me, I'm supposed to work from home and come to school. But you have seen, Parliament is owning up saying they have not asked the Treasury and the Ministry of Education to release money to construct classrooms, to construct laboratories. Why do you put me on the spot on this matter? This matter is not mine. What is mine is basically when I don't teach properly, when I am not retooled to do my work, I need also to up my game as a teacher. But where have we failed as teachers? Have we failed to go to school? We are asking for numbers of teachers to be engaged. And you realize that the government of this country has decided to engage casual workers to manage a major transition phase of our education. Is that my problem? How much do you want me to cry over this? I have asked Parliament, and they have called us there.
Right.
In fact, inappropriately, that we go before them to explain why we are not talking about capitation.
Right.
Why not, we are not providing evidence for promotions. Have you seen?
Okay.
You know, those ones are very serious. Now, when it comes to schools, demonstrations or no demonstrations, in fact, why am I going to demonstrate in this case when even that cohort of teachers have been declared illegally engaged? This is a government that wants slaves to work for them. That is the only thing which we shall say, no, we are not going to do that. But when the children are not being taught because the court in this land has declared the engagement illegal, is that my mistake?
All right. He mentioned the parliament.
Anki, you should not put me on this spot.
No, I am speaking because the parents watching this morning are wondering where this leaves them. There's a lot of anxiety for the parents.
Yes.
And as you respond, there's a parliament has been put on spot for calling them inappropriate.
Don't worry.
Yes.
I'm not here to discuss why.
You sit in the committee.
Just a minute.
Yes.
Why we have summoned Kupet. We want to speak to Kupet. He's a major stakeholder in education. For God's sake, if you have to read our constitution, you know Parliament makes its decision based on consultation. We represent people.
Okay.
Okay? We represent people. And the people, if they have raised issues and we feel we need to speak to Kupet, we will call them today, tomorrow,
when you feel there's
any other day.
Okay.
That he will come and tell us why, and we'll tell him why it's important. After all, what's a school? There's no school without a teacher. Would that be a school? No. There must be a teacher. There's no school without infrastructure. Is that a school? The answer is no. There's no school without policy to direct that.
All right.
Yes, if there's no policy, there's no school. So all these factors interact, and Missouri will have to accept that. Okay? All we are saying here on BAT is this. That over, since independence, we cannot today be sitting here on a national television arguing about a calendar.
Is it?
Really? A country that has been independent since 1963 arguing over a calendar. We cannot be sitting here today knowing very well that 2 classes have no teachers. Grade 7. As it is, I've said this and I want to repeat it to you. As it is today, grade 7 and grade 8 has no teachers. It only has one person, the head of institution. Head of institution. That's the only person who is in charge of all the grade 7 as they are operating today. Because the court has declared the relationship between the person who was called an employee or a curriculum deliverer as a teacher, the relationship between that person and the employer as illegal, null and void. So what that means, what would be the relation? Why would he expect this man to go to school, this JSS teacher? And the court has said, my friend, you and the Missouri, Nabi and Missouri, you have no relationship. That is a fundamental issue. And I've said it, and I want to repeat it.
All right.
That unless a court of higher competence declares itself differently, as it is today, we have no JSS teachers.
All right.
Where did the rain start? Thank God I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
We are a country of bad manners, for sure. We engage these people. Look at their letter of appointment. It was 1 year. In fact, God works in his own way. These people are actually engaged for 1 year. They were supposed to transition, as he said, they were supposed to manage for us the transition and then move into permanent after 1 year. Around October, November last year, now arguments started, oh, we don't have budget, or we don't have blah, blah. We ended up saying we need them to renew in February, to renew for another year.
Okay.
You understand? If we had stuck to what we had, the initial arrangement, we would not be in this mess. Because these people, in January this year, they would have transitioned to permanent and pension. You would be having teachers. The argument then was very reasonable. We are managing transition. But you can't manage a transition forever.
All right. Now, the question would be, when we are about to reopen the schools.
And that is the reason for which I'm saying
yes,
that my brother will not run away from the accusation I've made. But it is good, my brother has said, this is a country of bad manners. And who has championed this bad manners?
Okay, good question.
Who is supposed to call to order those people with bad manners? It is National Parliament. The Committee of Education, yes, to us they have really been very useful because they have really did certain things that we expected them to do. But the entire House has failed this nation in so many ways.
All right.
If there was no budget, if there was no budget to fund education to the extent of hiring more teachers, then the person to have done that is Parliament. They didn't do it. Instead, they allowed for more foreign travel allocation.
So you're saying they failed in prioritizing the resources?
Yeah, they really prioritized that, and they did not question. And in fact, even in the supplementary budget, that is something which featured very prominently. In my case, I do accept we have got our own failings. But in this case of managing transition, Parliament must bear the blame because they are the ones who allocate and appropriate. They make the budget and make sure that it is properly appropriated. They're the ones who can call to order that why is capitation not reaching to school in time? Not me. I don't have such powers. And that is why you can now see that even these interns are on the streets claiming employment. Not that they are supposed to continue because that one is gone. That one is gone. The court in the land has said it is a nullity. It is not lawful to engage them as interns. Then there is only one provision, that these people should be engaged on permanent and pensionable terms. In fact, Teacher Service Commission was also indicted in that judgment, that they don't even have a policy to engage anybody as an intern. But they did. Now that they did, and now that these people are on the streets, they are on the streets. But the most dangerous thing is that they are not even supposed to be in school.
All right.
And therefore, there are no teachers for grade 7, 8, and maybe 9 next year.
So to get clarity, what you're saying is even if the schools are to be open today, there would still be a distraction, there would still be an issue with this particular stage and level of education, even if it was not for the floods.
Even if it was not for the floods.
But let me help Missouri on two issues he has mentioned, Parliament adversely. How does Parliament appropriate its money?
All right.
This same Missouri, who is claiming that Parliament has not appropriated money properly, came to before Parliament, before our committee, and said, look, our teachers for years have never been promoted, which was fact.
All right.
The same money we are supposed to employ for teachers, we had to provide money for promotion. And he will tell you, despite the fact that they had entered into an monetary CBA, this, my committee where I sit, in our own motion, gave money and told TSC promote teachers.
How much?
1.2 billion to promote teachers. We wanted more money, we couldn't get. We said, let's start somewhere, get this money, promote teachers. Even this year, in the budget we are going to make, we are making, in the process of making, we are providing more money so that we can deal with the backlog. I can tell you, but we have teachers who have served in a grade for 20, 80. I mean, and they have never been promoted. It is us who unlocked that. But look at it this way. In the context of having education function, you also have other sectors of the economy that must function. So it is a delicate balance. Of course, my personal opinion has been that the educational sector needs 1 trillion shillings. And I am very consistent on that. And I say, in an economy of more than 3 trillion, there is no any other better place you can create change other than education. Now, in our own wisdom as a country, we decided to change to CBC. When we decided to change to CBC, we must have done a study to see the gaps in laboratory or resource centers, in teachers, and in all other facilities. And we must have weighed in to say, look, despite these gaps in schools, we have capability. We have capacity to fill the gaps. All I'm saying is, can the executive, this is how it happens. In the budget making process in Kenya, we start with the executive making proposals so that we can see their competing interests. Okay? Can the executive bring before Parliament in the supplementary money to employ JSS teachers? Number one. Number two, we had an agreement. As we are talking now in the current budget, there's about 4 billion shillings, which is the Ministry of Education has entered into an arrangement with National CDF Board to give a conditional grant to build facilities. Can they release the money? Because the money was appropriated. What Missouri does not know, once as we have appropriated the money, we don't have capacity as Parliament to release the money from Treasury. We can only wait to ask where we gave money. Why didn't this money land at this desk?
You know, as we're speaking here, I'm convinced there's a third or fourth party that ought to have been in this panel to answer. But I'm not sure that, of course, Akelo is convinced. Because even as we're speaking, Kenyans who are watching this morning are asking just one question. Where is the place of the student and the parent watching this morning? You said you speak for Teachers Matters. He is speaking for the people he represents. So, and as far as this is concerned, Honorable here, Nabi is explaining to you how it works. But the parent watching back at home is asking me to ask you, they're also education stakeholders. And they're in a position of anxiety to know if their children will be getting their education quality as needed.
Take note.
Yes.
That in fact, something which has now just gone with the floods and with the striking of the JSS is our threat of going to strike because of capitation. That one was talking on behalf of government, of parents, indeed, that the situation had become dire to get money to make schools run. Because, for schools which are in the village, the sub-county schools, where Nabi pumps a lot of some grants, the learners and the parents know that the government is paying because it is free, affordable day secondary school. But that money does not reach in time. And therefore, the learners are between school and home, on the road looking for this, for money. So it became so difficult such that we threatened to be on strike. That's when the government released, the minister released 3,877 shillings as a second tranche for last year's, for this year's capitation, which did not even fill the void left last year. So there are so many things which have been taking place in the education subsector.
All right.
And the focus now is shifting on us as the union. While our main mandate is supposed basically to focus on the teachers. But because we care about the learners, we were seeing that something is amiss. And that's why we started now looking at the culprits. And that's why whenever I attack my brother here, there is no apology for it, because they are supposed to appropriate.
All right.
The government expenditure is guided by what budget has been done by Parliament. And Brother Nabi is telling me something which I also think ought to happen. Education is such key to our development, such that if it is not given priority as it is not given now, then we lose it. Like now we are going to lose an entire generation. This is a fact. An entire generation. Our choice of CBC was correct. And we were supposed to chew the bullet of sacrifices to be made to make it work. Because we are in the 21st century and there are so many things which must be made to work, because we cannot rely heavily on those people who are just passing exams and cannot do anything. We must have functional literacy among the learners we teach. And that's what made CBC to be picked. And I don't think there should be any apology for that.
All right.
Once we already select, something got amiss. Parliament allowed the Presidential Working Party document to pass in its entirety. That's why I accused them.
Is it?
To pass in its entirety.
So there was no count checking those
They did not check.
That is what...
They did not check. So when they came to domiciling these learners into primary schools, they forgot that integrated science required some basic science equipment. And already, the late Magoha had built 11,000 classrooms to absorb this group. But in an event, this one did not happen. We were supposed to say that the stage of transition to senior school was supposed to be sub-county school, which were in the village. Because when I was growing up in primary and even secondary school, our ward did not have even a secondary school. The one which was started was started when I was already out of school. But currently, the ward has 13 secondary schools.
Okay.
These are sub-county schools which could absorb all the primary school learners who are transiting from grade 6 to junior secondary school.
All right. Now, gentlemen, another very key issue. No, Honorable Nabi, even as you're getting to that,
correction first.
and very briefly, because I want to understand, if 1 week is realistically...
I want to make a correction.
All right, I'm giving you that chance. But even as you do, Honorable Nabi, just a second, I also want us to then transition into the 1 week period, all right, that has been given for the settlement and for the postponement of this particular opening date. Realistically, all right, we're expecting then the weatherman says it will be raining for the next 7 days. Is it going to be enough, all right, to reposition the education sector to then commence the second term? Honorable Nabi.
Yes, the first correction I want to make is Missouri saying that Parliament passed the Working Party report in entirety. It is a mistake.
All right.
We are still waiting for the session of paper. Yes. Please, Missouri should be knowing this. The working party report can only be...
report is domicile.
Just listen, no.
Yeah,
I will tell you.
I'll come back to
working party report can only come to Parliament through a sessional paper. And we are waiting for the sessional paper. Even the Committee of Education, we have not received the sessional paper. And the ministry keeps on telling us they are still working on it. At that time, we'll deal with it. How did this issue of domiciling in primary come about? In fact, it came about before the final report was out, because we were going to open schools. The presidential working party was still in session, but they looked at this issue. It made a lot of sense. And I want to tell you, it still makes sense to me. As Nabi, I was one of the fellows who made a presentation that we were going to lose children. Those kids were too young to bring to a national school. A grade 7 as a mother. How old is he? Some don't even know. Actually, my word would be very simple. Some even still are susuni. They need the mother. They need they need the parent. They need the parent to be there to... I mean, in the country where parents have attempted to shift responsibility to the teacher, that was going to be chaos.
All right.
So, when we made that decision, it was the right decision to make. What has not happened is that every responsible decision has investment to it. So we just need to do the investment.
And who is to do the investment? The question would be, who is to do the investment?
That's why I'm telling you,
yes,
all these things have been conjured properly.
All right.
Let me tell you, if today you were to bring money into JSS, it just works. And by the way, I come from the school of thought that, and I've made this clear on the floor of the House, right, anywhere I go, that this government has enough money to put in it. I keep on telling you this. How many times will I say? We have enough. Now, let me ask you. Even before we talk about JSS, what is so difficult, they came up with a new funding model for university. Why haven't they released the money for second semester?
Do we have enough money then to also revive the infrastructure that has been broken down by the floods? Because we're still on the floods.
If you have money to build houses which people,
what is the plan in this
people
week?
have not asked for, you then have money to deal with all these things, please.
But it's sitting
the problem this country has,
yes,
I've said it and I want to repeat here, is cash flow management. This economy is not... I mean, we cannot be saying the economy is growing at beyond 6.5, and on the other hand, we are saying we don't have... It's just a question of cash flow. It's like a mother in the house. He has 1,000. How do you feed the children? If you get 500, how do you reorganize your budget?
All right, gentlemen, I know the president is expected to have a cabinet sitting tomorrow to speak to the matters floods, and I want to close this conversation. I know that it was taken away by what is happening with the JSS, teachers, because it's another critical issue so far, which means, vividly, even if it were not for the floods, we have a concern in as far as are there teachers in the institutions of learning in those particular respective levels. Honorable Akello, even as we're closing this, I mean, parents are tasking me to still bring in you, of course, as education stakeholders, not as a unionist, all right, that they want to understand what next, right, in the next week, in the second term for learning.
What is there? I don't think these floods are more dangerous than the COVID-19.
All right.
We weathered that storm, and we can as well weather this storm.
But it did distract the calendar.
One thing is that maybe there are few schools,
right,
not many schools, few schools which have been destroyed. And this is what the disaster response should now address. That the Ministry of Special Programs should address this and take money there to refurbish the schools so that they are ready for learning. What I wonder is what informed the minister to postpone the closure by 1 week.
All right.
Because if the meteorological department is saying that the rain will last another 7 days, then the number of days that he gave was not enough. But I don't think in this country we can't reach all the places because of the floods. The schools should open, and because when children are at school, they are more safer than when they are at home, especially that category. Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
That would be safer in their homes?
Safer.
We're seeing some very disturbing pictures.
This category of students, especially when they are at home, in their numbers, it is more destructive. Remember what happened during the COVID period. We lost nearly 16,000 girls to teenage pregnancies. We have early mothers than we had before. And we had so many learners who could not go back to school because they had already gone to work in the quarry, tea picking or cutting sugarcane, and so on, or even construction works. So the learners of this category are safer at school. For that period, they are meant.
Yes.
They are safe at school, and it would be very, very important that we monitor the floods and we only open as the minister has advised.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for your closing remarks, Honorable Nabi. Just keep it short.
What I expect tomorrow is the president to declare floods a national disaster. I can see more problems as the rains come.
Would you have expected that this cabinet meeting would have been done a little earlier than tomorrow?
Yes, it's too late. There again is a question of the right not knowing what the left is doing. But I expect him to declare floods a national disaster.
Okay.
Secondly, I expect, after declaring it a national disaster, to provide funding to the National Disaster Response Team and county governments. County governments don't have money even to put in their emergency fund because they have not released their money. So they need their money. The third most important thing, as much as Missouri is saying children are safer in school, I have a different view.
Okay.
We need an evaluation, especially in the sub-county schools. It has destroyed the environment, especially the pit latrines. We need to do an assessment. We could go into a situation where waterborne diseases in schools increase, and we end up with a Mukumu kind of situation.
Cholera, malaria.
That is it.
All right.
So we need, this week, we need to do an assessment and decide the level of destruction in the basic public health infrastructure that exists in school. Then finally, I'm not convinced that then you need to open schools after 6 weeks. If meteorology is saying, after 5 days, when meteorology is saying the rains will continue for 7 days. So maybe if the question was of floods and we expect more, then we need to rethink that date collectively. My appeal to the parents, take care of the kids. Remember, in the Maimahiu,
they were running out of time?
In Maimahiu, of the 45 confirmed, 17 are school going. And they were at home.
Okay.
17 are school going. Please, parents, for the time we have extended, take care of the children.
Thank you. I want to appreciate you, Honorable Nabina Bera, Lugari Member of Parliament. You also sit in the National Assembly Education Committee, for your sentiments this evening. Honorable, at this point, of course, Kelo Misori, who is the SG Kupet. The question still remains, what next for the parents after the 7 days? Of course, the panel is saying we need to rethink. But let's wait and hear what the president will say tomorrow. The cabinet is expected to convene on this particular issue of the floods at KTN News across all social media platforms. Keep engaging with us, sending in your thoughts and your concerns, pictures of what is actually happening on the ground. This is a inconclusive conversation because education is endless. We wish you safety. And in all things, we hope that your children will be safe. My name is Anki Dorisumbat. Have a good night. See you again tomorrow.